You're listening to the TV Obsessive channel, presented by TVObscast.com.
Hello and welcome back to episode 83 of the TV Obsessive podcast. My name is Ryan Kirksey. I'm a writer and contributor for TVObsessive.com, and once again joined by Cameron Crane, executive editor for the site. Will we be discussing today, do you think, whether ice cream or music is better? That's come up
Oh,
on
I
our
mean,
episode, so
I suppose we could. Um, my quick answer is probably music. What about you?
I would
Like,
say so too. Yeah,
if you
yeah.
had to live the rest of your life without one of those things, I'd
Yeah,
probably
ice
rather
cream.
be
Ice cream would
deprived of ice
definitely.
cream.
Yeah, ice cream would definitely be it. Although you're not from Texas, so you haven't had Bluebell ice cream, so that makes it a little bit tougher.
I don't know if I mean, I might have. I think there's like a store brand of Bluebell, or maybe I don't know if that's exactly the same. There's definitely some really good ice cream out there, and it would be a shame to have to live the rest of my life without ice cream. But
Right.
I simply cannot imagine living the rest of my life without music.
I concur. I
Um,
agree with that.
So anyway, that does relate to something. But I don't think it's really a spoiler. Anyhow, we will be in the latter part of the pod continuing our coverage of Silo with season 2, episode 9. So we're getting towards the end of season 2 there. We'll be back next week, of course, with the podcast on the finale. I'll go ahead and mention now we're also going to figure out a time, but in the next week to record something on the season 2 premiere of Severance, which is where we're going next, because, well, both the Severance premiere and the Silo finale, they're both on next Friday, the 17th, in terms of the release. So we'll have a podcast for you. As it stands, January 10th, as per usual, talk a bit about what we've been watching, what's been in the news before we dig into our episode of the week. I want to call it that. What have you been watching this week, Ryan?
Well, I'd love to if we can start with the Traitors. This was on your list. I know it released on Thursday with 3 episodes. I have watched 2 of those. Have you seen all 3 at this point?
Yeah, I couldn't help it.
Okay.
I do thank Peacock for releasing 3 episodes. I didn't realize they were going to do that. I didn't realize even that they had done that until the first episode ended and it started taking me to the second episode. I was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Because like if it had just been that first episode, I would have been so kind of frustrated. I've never watched the show week to week before.
Yeah.
And it's so bingeable with the way that it's structured. I do appreciate that they gave us the 3 episodes, and then if you haven't gotten there yet, this isn't much of a spoiler because I think just structurally, where episode 3 ends, yeah, felt okay, felt better than it could because often that episode ends and like you don't know who they murdered or whatever, right?
I was
Um,
going to ask if I should be concerned about that, that I have also never watched this show week to week. And, am I going to get to the end of 3 and think, gosh, this is going to be miserable to have to wait a week for the next episode?
I mean, at least with how they did the end of episode 3, I don't fully feel like I'm hanging off a cliff. I think I told you when I recommended the show to you over the summer that in
Yeah.
binging it, I would often watch like the first 10 minutes of the next episode and
Yeah.
pause it and then go to bed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm a little concerned with that moving forward. It does look like it's a weekly schedule from here on out, at least from what I have seen. Could be wrong. Could be wrong. Um, I'm enjoying it so far. I was thinking about, I recall the last time we talked about the trailers, you made a comment about maybe liking the UK version better for reasons that I think I'm with you on. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
it definitely seems like here in season 3, they're kind of leaning in even harder on these are reality stars from other reality shows angle. And I don't know that I love that. What about you?
Yeah, I did feel the same way as I watched these first 2 episodes. And, at some point in these first few, there are characters introduced at a certain point in the game. And it's supposed to be a big reveal. And, 2 of the 3 characters I'd never seen before, so I had no idea who they were.
I've never seen any
So
of
I
them.
guess yeah, it's
I
like
had no idea who any of these people are.
one of the guys I'd heard of before, just having watched one of the shows that they came from many, 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 many years ago. But yeah, this impactful oh, it's these people that just didn't it didn't land on me, like, probably the way it would to a lot of people.
Yeah, it's literally like set up where they take the hood off the person's head and
Yeah.
dun dun dun. I'm like, oh, it's just some guy as far as I'm
Yeah, I have no
concerned.
idea.
Um, so maybe a little bit more than previous seasons. I feel like, look, I get it, and I get the idea where if you are familiar with these people from their own reality shows, maybe you're more immediately invested.
Yeah.
But it feels like they've gone a step further in ways that I'm finding a little hard to pin down, but it's making me this time feel left out a little bit more than in previous seasons of the US version, or less invested. Like I don't know who these people are, and I'm not sure I care. Or I don't think I like any of them. Like it's like
Yeah.
maybe one or two people so far. Or like I kind of like these people. It's like
Yeah.
very and I don't know what I'm into the show for, as you know, is the kind of strategizing and stuff like that. And that feels a little thin so far. And I don't know if it's because these people on this season aren't having those conversations, which I guess is what I hope is the case. Part of me
Yeah.
fears that the producers are like cutting out conversations that I would find interesting.
I fully anticipate that as the show goes along and people get eliminated, that just sort of the natural alliances that are there from times they've spent on previous shows together will sort of dissolve, and new, I guess, new groups will be formed, new ways of looking at strategy as opposed to just let me stick with the people I know. I expect some of this will fade away, some of the concern about this, and just be much more about the gameplay as we go forward.
I certainly hope so, because it's the difference between the Traitors and a show like Survivor or Big
Yeah.
Brother, neither of which I enjoy. And so, like, there's a way in which so far it feels a little bit, because like on Survivor, there's a certain similarity, but it's kind of like all about alliances and
Yep. Yep.
backstabbing and so on. Whereas the Traitors has this really interesting premise and conceit to it, where it's like, oh, well, but someone's going to get murdered and someone's going to get banished, and all right, but yeah, as you say, it probably will get better as it goes along, because in previous seasons too, I kind of recall maybe the first
Yeah.
it taking a few episodes before I was really as hooked as I became. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I enjoyed it so far. I
Yeah.
definitely could not help but watch all three episodes last night. So
I'll be finishing the third t tonight. I'm quite sure of that.
yeah. I also went ahead and checked out something we've talked about before on here, which is the crossover episode between Abbott Elementary and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I mean, I'm not up to speed, I don't think, on either show, but it occurred to me that I don't think it really matters with either show. I mean, maybe more with Abbott Elementary, which I haven't watched as much, but certainly with It's Always Sunny, it's like it's not like it's a serial plot so much.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I've not seen any of season 4 of Abbott, which this is the current season right now is season 4. But I did check it out anyways, at risk of, for whatever spoilers would have been there for, what hijinks these people are getting into at this school, and found nothing. So I mean, it does seem very much to be a standalone episode. And having not really seen much of Sunny before, yeah, I quite enjoyed the sort of crossover between these characters.
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
I was entertained. I mean, I was entertained. I was amused. Probably did feel more like an episode of Abbott Elementary, which it is.
Hmm.
So that's fair. Um, I guess I shouldn't get into spoiler territory about it, but yeah, I mean, it was entertaining
Yeah.
to see these characters in that context, and like, of course, I think I speculated previously about what would bring them to the school, and like, of course, it was what it was. I
Yeah.
don't know why I didn't pull
And,
that
and
in.
apparently there will be a second crossover that happens in the Sunnyverse, I guess, where the
Oh,
Abbott
really?
Elementary is going to go. I think that's what they have announced, that another crossover has been shot and will at some point air in a Sunny season.
Well, that would be interesting. Um, I did. I will put this in the show notes from the article, podcast article on TVObscast.com. Anyway, link to this article that they had planned a bit more of a backstory between Frank and Mr. Johnson, and then I'm
Hmm.
not sure if they shot it and didn't use it, or if they didn't even shoot it. That was
Yeah.
unclear to me, but I thought that was kind of interesting, and it would be amusing that they at least had this idea that oh, these two actually know each other. They like went to high school with each other or
Yeah.
something like that. So on.
They did sort of position them, even in the short 21 minutes they had for this episode, sort of position them as rivals to one another, which I found funny. So yeah, that if we could get some of that, I think it might be quite interesting.
Yeah, and if they do a crossover in the, I mean, I don't know what. It's hard to imagine all of the people at this school going to Patty's Pub.
Yeah.
Maybe. Beyond that, looks like you've checked out The Madness on
Yeah,
Netflix, I
so I got
believe.
interested. I saw one of these things about a week ago that said, oh, for the second straight week, Netflix's show The Madness leads all streamers and all minutes watched. And it talked about, the hundreds of millions of minutes that the show had been watched over the past couple weeks. I just thought, man, I don't know anything about this. Got to looking into it. It stars Coleman Domingo, who I love. He is as part of the movie Sing Sing. And many think he's a front runner for an Oscar this year. And so I thought, oh, this is interesting. I'll check it out. And so it's sort of a conspiracy thriller about him being framed for a murder, and his attempts to get to the bottom of it, slash get out of it, slash uncover certain things about why he is put in this position. I thought it was interesting when it could get out of its own way politically. Like sometimes it just literally stops to like deliver messages because he's a CNN pundit, and so he
Mhm.
would just sort of get up on a soapbox from time to time, and it's like we can tell what the message is that you're trying to get across by the show that you're doing here. So it wasn't just sort of pure prestige TV, but it wasn't the night agent either, right? It's sort of somewhere in between, and I did find it entertaining, and the story is good. But thought, man, if this is this popular, want to check it out. And sure enough, Coleman Domingo is fantastic in the show, and it's a decent story. If anybody wants to check it out, 8 episodes, 50 minutes long each. You could knock it out over a weekend.
Yeah, I thought it looked like it would be pretty good or pretty entertaining, at least kind of thriller type show.
Hmm.
I mean, this pinged my radar. uh, I mentioned it in our Discord, but no one noticed.
Yeah.
Um, but cool. I know that kind of moving to some more news type items. I know you're excited for The Last of Us season 2. We got the announcement that that's coming in April. I don't think they've been more specific than that. I
Yeah,
don't know if
this
there's
looks
much more to
this
say out
looks
there.
like, if we're doing the math correctly, we'll get on February 17th, I believe, we'll get the next season of The White Lotus, and then that will fill the Sunday night slot, and then likely it will go right up until maybe a week break, right up until the April date where they roll out The Last of Us. As you said, no specific date yet. I think that's still to come. I did start this week a 16-hour Last of Us Part 2 full game walkthrough, as I did with season 1, just so I can sort of
All right.
familiarize myself with the context of the story. There's a big time jump in this season. They've already announced that, so that's not some kind of big spoiler, but yeah, very much looking forward to it. Definitely going to cover the show again. They've released a couple of different trailers now, which I think just look amazing. So yeah, very excited to dive back into that show.
Yeah, I find myself thinking too, like maybe I need to catch up and actually watch season 2 as it airs. Something of a phenomenon, you know.
Yeah,
I'm still in this space where all I've actually watched was like the first 3 episodes,
yeah, right,
but
right.
because we did that podcast on episode 3 that you chose as one of your standouts when we were doing
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I think you're right. I would expect it to go the White Lotus and then right into The Last of Us, probably. But I don't think we know how many episodes are in this season of The White Lotus either. So I don't think we can
No,
even quite figure it out yet. But
I mean, likely to be 6, 7, or 8, based on past seasons. So that would take us right up until April. So, the specifics on the plan still to come.
indeed, another thing that you wrote on Ahsoka season 1, right? We got the announcement that they're replacing Ray Stevenson with Rory McCann. Thoughts on this?
Yeah, so this was something I found interesting because as this show ended, as Ahsoka season 1 ended, there was the news that Ray Stevenson, who played Baylan Skoll, an old school sort of grizzled Jedi in the series, he passed away right at the end of the show. and he was actually one of the most interesting characters on this show. And so a
Mhm.
new character had been introduced, and so there was this real, I think, concern about what they would do if it was renewed. The show was renewed, so now Rory McCann, who most people will recognize him as the Hound from Game of Thrones, has been cast in this role. So he's another sort of large, imposing figure that can fill that. Yeah, I'm an old British Jedi that can, you can really intimidate you. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the Hound again in this role. Should be fun.
Yeah, he's got a similar kind of look to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it, but yeah, really still, it's sad that Ray Stevenson passed and all of that. But as I recall from what you wrote on Ahsoka, which I haven't watched, I would imagine you're looking forward to the fact that they're continuing it. Yes.
Yes, if nothing more so than particularly for this storyline, there was sort of some interesting things left with the Baylan Skoll character of what could be done. The Ahsoka part was, I think, interesting in its sort of place among the sequence of some of the ancillary Star Wars material, right? The Star Wars Rebels and Clone Wars and some of the other series that have come out. So that was sort of an interesting piece of continuity. But this new character that they introduced and what could be done with him, I found one of the more compelling parts of the show. So recasting that, I think they can still continue it, and glad to see that they're gonna at least pull that string a little bit more.
Yeah, that's heartening, right? I mean, they didn't decide to cancel the show because Ray Stevenson died. They
Right.
decided to continue it. They've recast him, so they haven't made his character die. I like, sometimes that happens too, right? Or they just
Yeah.
send the character to Mandeville or whatever.
Yeah.
But so cool. Definitely looking forward to Severance, which comes out next week, as I previously mentioned. We will be doing the podcast week to week on Severance season 2. I will also be writing for TVObscast.com if you want to read my recap articles each week, or you can still call them recaps, but I do try to get into the analysis and
hmm
all of that kind of thing, whatever term we want to use. We mentioned last week that they did a free trial of Apple TV Plus as a whole. Now this week I'm reading that there is, how to put this? So it's on the Roku channel, which is a thing that exists. Um, and through the Roku channel, I guess you can get Severance season 1 for free.
Yes. Yeah.
Probably there are going to be commercials in that on the Roku channel. I believe the Roku channel is a fast
Yeah,
thing.
I would think
Um,
that that's right, and you have to have the Roku device or the Roku downloaded to be able to view this. But yeah, I would imagine that's the case. Certainly before and after the episode, maybe not right in the middle, but certainly before and after.
I think you can do it through um, a web browser. I think that's also
Oh, okay,
possible.
okay.
I
I've
don't know.
always watched Roku through a television, which you used to have a a stick, and then you could download it, and then yeah, just sort of in various ways.
Yeah, there was a time when I was living in an apartment with other people, and we had a Roku. This was 10 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
And so I think I feel a little bit, I don't know, am I behind the times or what? Because my tendency is I watch things on my computer. That's what I
Okay.
primarily do. Um, although over there pointing, there's a TV that has actual cable. But in terms of the streaming stuff, I don't. Yeah, so I don't know. I kind of don't know what the Roku channel is, but I'm pretty sure you can go to this through the website if that's what you want to do, or through whatever device, get the Roku channel app,
Yeah.
or whatever. But if you haven't watched Severance, it's coming out next week. Everyone's going to be talking about it. It's the best show that's been on television in 7 years. Speaking for myself, and that would be, to be clear, Twin Peaks is what I'm referring to 7 years ago. In terms of my personal opinion, so I definitely think you should check it out. And it looks like too, then there is a possibility to get a free trial of Apple TV Plus through the Roku channel that's involved here.
Yeah, this doesn't surprise me that I think this happened with maybe with Yellow Jackets in season 2, that they'll offer either a week or a month or a free trial. 3 months is pretty lengthy. You'll be able to see the whole,
That's time for the whole
the
season
whole
too.
season
Right?
for
So
3 months. That's pretty substantial.
I'm
Uh,
starting, I'm starting to feel like I'm doing an ad read for the Roku channel, which I'm not. I want you to watch Severance. Roku, if you're listening, feel free to send us some money, but they haven't
yeah,
done
right.
that.
It did
uh,
get me thinking about our conversation of how in this last week leading up to it, Apple TV will promote this season. When we see commercials, when we see all the sort of some of this innovative advertising, this certainly is a part of that. I should send it to you. I took a screenshot on my phone. I was playing Words with Friends, and if you don't have the paid version, you make your move and then an ad pops up. Well, I keep getting ads for Severance season 2 on my Words with Friends, so they're at least wanting me to watch through
they're
that method.
they're plugging it. Have you seen the Domino's Squid Game ad?
Yes, yes, I
That's
have.
awful. That's in poor taste.
Yeah.
Poor taste. But I was also going to mention about Severance, and then we'll move on. But the official podcast with Ben Stiller and Adam Scott launched. I did find the time to listen to the first episode, which was quite good. I find it very interesting to listen to. They also had Dan Erickson on there, who's the creator, the original, writer, showrunner. I believe he's a showrunner. Um, and someone else. Anyhow, it seems like they'll often have guests.
Yeah.
What I didn't realize is the first episode they released on the 7th, they're releasing an episode a day
Oh,
on the first season, and then going to continue weekly with the second season. So
okay.
I enjoyed the first episode a lot, but I was like, this is too much. I don't have like a couple hours a day, really. I mean, I've got other stuff to do. So we'll see if I manage to listen to all of their first season episodes before season 2 comes out. But it was kind of interesting. In the first one,
Yeah.
when they're talking about the pilot, they get into some of the stuff about how Dan Erickson wrote it and some differences between his original script and what is in the show. And it's interesting stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'll probably check out at least one episode of that before the next season drops. And certainly we'll probably use that as a companion as we go through this for the entire season for sure.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
Try to keep up with it.
Yeah.
One
Last
more.
thing I wanted to mention was just a very quick shout out. Jeremy Allen White. This is part of the Golden Globes, which happened last Sunday night. A lot of things that were expected to win, sort of very chalky with television, Shogun, Hacks, The Bear, some very clear winners that people thought were going to win. But just found this note interesting that Jeremy Allen White won for The Bear season 3 for the third year in a row as best actor in a comedy or musical television series, joining Alan Alda with MASH and Michael J. Fox and Family Ties. No, not Family Ties. And I guess
Spin
Spin
City.
City is, yeah, as the only men to ever win 3 years in a row. I just found that interesting. We can debate whether or not we think season 3 deserved that accolade this year, but just a good company to be in.
Does anyone ever won 4 years in a row?
I did not see that.
I didn't see that either. Because they'll win again next year. Because
Yeah,
because
right.
you're like, well, we're gonna put the Bear up in the comedy category. Okay. We don't need to go through all that again. Yes, congrats to Jeremy Allen White, well deserved, for his performance in the Bear. Which I'm sure we'll be back on when that comes out, which
That's right.
we haven't heard anything whatsoever, but they've been putting out a season of the Bear pretty much every June, I think,
Yeah,
right?
late
So
late June, 3 years in a row. Yeah,
I would
and
stake a little bet that we're gonna get the next season in June.
here it does say Alan Alda won 4 years in a row for MASH. That's the
Uh,
longest.
can't beat out Aldo.
Nope.
He's a goat. All right, well, let's talk about Silo. So we're up
Yes.
to season 2, episode 9, All the Safeguard. Only one more episode of this season of Silo left after this one. Episode came out today. So spoilers will be on the table here for everything that happens through Silo season 2, episode 9. No book spoilers here. We'll put in a little bit of music and be back with you in about 10 seconds.
Okay, we are back to talk about Silo season 2, episode 9, titled The Safeguard. This episode was written by Jessica Blair, directed by Amber Templemore. Episode 9 opens with flashbacks of some mysterious people in Silo 17, tracking Juliet all the way back to when we first saw her enter in episode 1. Eventually, in the present day, she is confronted by Audrey, Rick, and another female named Eater, who want her to get them access to the food vault inside where Solo lives. After discovering more things related to a boy named Jimmy Conway, Juliet realizes that that is Solo's real name and that he was the head of IT's son and not actually his shadow. He, meaning Solo/Jimmy, killed Audrey and Rick's parents in self-defense, but Juliet convinces them all to make peace, and Solo invites them all into his vault. In Silo 18, Lucas Kyle learns that there are 50 other silos, and the founders created something called the Safeguard. That has an explanation for what that is in a tunnel in the depths of the silo. Lucas is able to get down there. He reaches the tunnel, where some kind of AI or computer algorithm warns him that he cannot repeat what he is about to see. Billings, meanwhile, shares the picture book page with his wife. He shares it with Robert Sims. Sims shares it with his wife. And Billings and the Sims all seem to be turning away from Bernard and favoring what Mechanical is trying to do. Bernard blames the rebels' action on Billings and continues to monitor Walker, although Walker is unaware that Knox may have realized that she has been the traitor recently. So a lot of character and lore and history introduced, particularly in Silo 17 in this episode. We get pretty intriguing mystery and cliffhanger in Silo 18. What's the best place to start here? Should we start with sort of the outline and the history of what happened with Juliet in Silo 17?
Yeah, I think we should start with Silo 17 and also get into what we learn about what's occurred in Silo 17. As you mentioned in your recap for this episode, it's ultimately not clear how much this matters
Yeah.
in terms of the plot moving forward. But I do think that it's worth being clear about what we learn here overall. And there also remains almost the most interesting thing to me is how, in certain ways, they have drawn a kind of parallel between this rebellion in Silo 17 and what seems to be brewing in Silo 18. So like I don't expect things in Silo 18 to ultimately go exactly the same way.
Yeah.
I think clearly that's part of what we're playing with here is that, well, if our friends in Mechanical and so on are successful, then maybe this is their future. And of course, that would be terrible, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And that future is, most of the people in the silo dead. The few that are remaining are living off of rats and whatever plants they can grow. And it's a truly, truly miserable life for the few that are able to survive.
yeah, and let's start with them a little bit. Audrey, Rick, and Eater, who has a real name, but Juliet doesn't think to ask when given the opportunity.
Nope, that's quite impolite of Juliet in that moment to not ask.
Yeah, and then there's another younger kid, right? And then there's a baby, and so whether we'll see these people after this episode, I don't know. I mean, well, obviously we might see them some next week, but whether we'll see them in further seasons is more of a question. The episode starts here showing us the events that we've seen in Silo 17, but from their perspective instead of Juliet's. Well, it was kind of, I don't know, cinematically interesting, but I don't know that we really needed it. I guess what do you think about these characters? Let's start there.
Yeah, I think it was interesting to see their perspective along the way. We sort of laid a little bit of groundwork. I saw one piece of commentary that said it reminded them of Lost, how Lost used to introduce characters and show some things from their perspective, and before you weave them into the program. But I guess I understand what it is that they're trying to do. They are, I guess, after all of these years, they are struggling to find food. They are struggling to stay alive. And so they think that they are owed some kind of recompense and deserve to be into the vault where Solo is to get access to his food and whatever it is that he is storing there. I I found them to be, I don't know, just sort of serving a certain purpose or a certain role in this episode without, I guess maybe just telling us what their backstory was and not showing or us learning too much more about it. I just wasn't that compelled by wanting to be on their side at all.
Yeah, agreed. I feel like ideally this first section, 10 minutes or so, maybe even, but if it's from their perspective, would have made us care about them, would have invested us in these characters. Um, well, look, that's a tall order if you want to do this briefly in like the cold open of an episode or whatever,
Yeah.
right? And it's a tall order for the actors and all of that. I get that, but it didn't really quite do that for me and left me in a way throughout the entire episode. Yeah, I don't really care about them very much.
Yeah.
Other than, I mean, like, yeah, they're human beings, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Um,
understand their struggle, but am very much more invested in Juliet and Solo surviving and getting out of this than I am in making sure that they, are able to find some food by the end of the episode. Yeah, I mean, I was exactly the same.
so I think that's a little bit unfortunate. You know, again, it would
Yeah.
be maybe, one of those things where in the books it's more effective. Like I think you could do it in the TV series, but again, just understand that it's a pretty tall order to just like immediately invest us in people we've never seen before in
Yeah.
even the course of one episode.
I think that we learn that they've experienced a lot of trauma, a lot of loss, and a lot of, real heartbreak in their time in the silo growing up. And maybe even show us some of that, help us understand what it is they've exactly gone through, as opposed to just we hear a little bit about their story, and later on in the episode we see a couple of decrepit corpses in the vault. That's really all that we're left with emotionally with these characters.
Yeah, maybe almost seeing more of their struggle to survive throughout time would have helped.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know how much time I wanted the show to spend
Yeah.
on this, so that's the other thing. But maybe it would have helped on this front a little bit to do so. I also find myself continuing to feel like I don't know how plausible this is. So, all right, what are we being told? Some people did not leave the silo in the rebellion that occurred
Mhm.
however many years ago. If we were to decide that Solo slash Jimmy Conway is the same age as Steve Zahn, it would be like 45 years ago.
Yeah.
Character could be younger than the actor, but decades ago. Anyway, okay, so some people didn't leave. Those aren't the people we're seeing. The people we're seeing are those people's children's children. I believe
Yes.
I put this together correctly, right? Um, so how many people stayed behind? Seems like not that many, a couple of families, or we were starting to talk a little bit about the possibility that maybe everyone who was left behind was a child, right? Like maybe the oldest anyone was a teenager. Eater says her mom was just a baby.
Yep.
So, I think that could make sense. Like maybe it's in parallel with what happens to Jimmy Conway, being protected by his father from what we see. But then how do they survive? They've got like a little hydroponic garden kind of thing going, and Eater talks
Yeah.
about eating rats, but
Yeah. There had to have been, which we guess we are led to believe, Chase and Tess. There were at least a couple of adults that were able to be around this group of children that were there. Those children have begat other children now. Eater seems to be the youngest of the grown children, I guess I should say. But yeah, I mean, as far as we can tell, there were very, very few that remained behind or that survived the rebellion inside the silo. Some children resulted of that. Those children have grown up. They've had at least one or two kids of their own. And now it's just, I mean, they're down to the bare minimum of what remains there. This, like you said, this small garden and whatever rats have existed in this time.
Yeah. So I guess we just have to accept that. We don't really have a choice. We could complain about it.
Yeah.
I don't feel like that's super fruitful either. Um, the details we do get. So Chase and Tess, I think is her name.
Hmm.
There's almost more here than we need because there's weird stuff about. Eater says something like that they. It sounds like they each had a spouse or partner who died and then they got together. Maybe that's all there just to avoid the incest possibility, I guess. Um, so
Yeah.
Tess is one of their kids, Rick is the other. Now they're a couple, they have a baby. No prospects to avoid incest for future generations, but
Yeah. Yeah, you are out of luck if you want to keep surviving. I
well, I guess
suppose
Eater was right. Okay,
yeah,
but
I suppose Rick and Eater can start another line of children's
I'm sorry, we're going too much into the worry about incest here. Um, I'm guessing that Chase and Tess, who we don't see other than as corpses, were maybe teenagers or something when the rebellion happened, but maybe not. Maybe they were younger. We don't know those level of details, but sometime between now and then, well, once they were adults,
Hmm.
they set about trying to get into the vault after food.
Yep.
Um, and the numbers on the blackboard in the classroom were them keeping records of what I think 6-digit combinations they had tried. The setup is you can try 3 times a day, and then you have to wait a day to try more.
Hmm.
But eventually they got in. And by that point, Solo was an adult, right? And he says he left his gun by the door like an idiot, and they shot him in his sleep, at which point, of course, he woke up. Then he locked them in the food vault by breaking off the handle and killed them. Well, they died. He let them suffocate in there.
Yep. Yep. That is
And
that is the implication that he could have saved them. He left them in a room. They apparently had plenty of food, but they had no air. So eventually, over some period of time, they did die, and he just left their corpses there. I guess he's moved them out
so
somewhere
he
else.
moved their
Away
corpses
from,
outside the vault.
yeah,
Clearly he did that because their corpses
yeah.
outside the vault. So, Audrey wants to kill him, but once this all comes to light, I mean, we're just kind of running through the facts of it, but I did find these scenes to be effective, um, emotionally,
Hmm.
with Juliet piecing it together and then talking to. So I want to keep calling him Solo, but Solo about being Jimmy and him recounting what had
Yeah,
happened.
I would say yes. Emotionally, that certainly did work. Just so Jimmy having to face the reality that he's not the person he kept telling Juliet that he was, that he's done some awful things. One might argue that he was forced to do those awful things, but he was just a kid who was probably locked up in a vault and told to not open it, as Juliet believes and is likely right, that it was just to save himself. The parents just wanted to save him. Um, yeah, Solo having to finally confront that, I think did really work emotionally, especially since what we've seen from him and heard from him in the past 9 episodes.
Yeah, so that was really good. And then, so he ultimately gives in and says, okay, I will let everyone in. They have a baby, I will let people in and give them access to the food. He gives them all ice cream and plays them Monster Mash, which I don't know if that's what I would
You
choose
got to
for
pick a better song if you're
your
gonna.
first experience of you've never heard music, check out the
Right.
Monster Mash. But bear in mind, he's been in that vault alone since he was 12 years old. He is mentally speaking, still like a teenager or preteen or whatever, basically. Another touching moment because Juliet found Russell's suit. She
Mm.
could have just left at that point. She decided not to. Um, Solo realizes that, so they have a nice moment where he puts his hand on her shoulder and all of that. Um, so let's see, there's something else I do want to piece together here, but maybe first, let's approach the question. All right, so Juliet's got her suit. She wants to go back to Silo 18. That's what she's been wanting all season long. Now there are 2 suits. Previously, of course, Eater did express a desire to leave because the others are mean to her. In your recap, you more or less floated the idea that you think that Solo is going to come with her. So I guess that's the question to talk about. Do you think Solo is going to come with her to Silo 18?
I just think, why would you introduce the concept of a second suit if you're not bringing Solo, or at least inviting Solo to come with you? Now, he may inevitably say, this is my home, this is the place where I belong, and volunteer to send someone else, or one of the other folks could come with Juliet. But yeah, why do we need a second suit if there's at least not going to be the intention for him to come with her? He seems to have some knowledge not only about the silos and about the vault, but also about what happened when things got to the point of rebellion. And as far as Juliet knows, that's could happen to her silo. So she's going to probably push hard for him to come.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know that I think that he will. I don't know that it feels like it would be in character to me, I
Hmm.
guess, given his previously expressed fear about leaving the vault, but
Yeah.
also just the fact that's his home. He's been living there virtually his entire life. Of course, now he has company, so I'm kind of imagining him maybe staying there and becoming a weird sort of father figure for
Yeah.
the younger folks. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe he will go. I think, and now we risk getting ahead of ourselves because what I'm about to say ties in stuff from Solo 18 as well, probably. But I kind of have the feeling that nothing that happens in the finale is as directly what we would expect.
Yeah, I get that impression as well. I mean, certainly the end of this episode was not what I was expecting at all. The idea of the second suit is one that is meant to serve the purpose that Juliet wants. We don't even know if the suit that she created, sort of makeshift put together, would even work. So it may just be that the best course of action for Silo 17 is for Solo to stay as sort of this, as you put, sort of father figure for this family and help them survive, whereby Juliet can just go on her own. But we are, I don't know, yeah, how far we want to get into the Silo 18 side of it. We're clearly don't have much time for her to make it back to the silo.
Right.
And
And
I
I mean,
wonder what's going to happen there.
we can circle back around to this, but at this point, I'll just say, I feel like I've gotten a pretty good handle on how this show works structurally
Mhm.
and what happened in the season 1 finale, or just think about season 1 as a whole. The show's very withholding. I constantly wanted to be getting more answers, and then you get to the finale, and oh, it really kind of opens things up,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess I'm expecting a similar kind of structure here with the season 2 finale. That I'm expecting something big to happen that we
Hmm.
don't see coming, as opposed to like what we could predict would be something like, oh, so Juliet puts on her suit. She goes back to Silo 18. She says, oh, hey guys, it really is toxic outside. Better calm down now. It's like that's
Yeah.
not what's going to happen. That's just
No,
not.
I think the big thing is going to be inevitably what happens with Lucas Kyle. I think it just whatever is revealed there, or is quasi revealed there, will be the big moment that we see in the next hour.
Yeah. So one more thing before we leave Silo 17 more or less behind, I think, for the day. In terms of what we see there, we get the flashback of the sheriff shooting Solo's father, Russell, in the head outside of the vault. Um, we saw him in the season premiere. So I thought this was kind of cool. If you go back, right, if you recall, he has this elliptical kind of dialogue with his wife before they march out of the silo. And so if you tie it back together, right, here's what he says. He says, my hand slipped. I didn't mean to. Why wouldn't he open the door?
Yeah.
Right. So my hand slipped. I didn't mean to shoot Russell in the head.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't little Jimmy open the door? Right. But then the rest of it, still, there's a little bit of mystery to. Do you think Russell was lying? Lying about what? You know?
Yeah.
And
Could
then,
be. I mean, we're pretty synchronized in terms of what was said in season 2, episode 1, and what we just saw in episode 9 in terms of that first part of that conversation. But yeah, the lying part could be about um, who the boy in there was, could be about what's actually outside, could be any
yeah,
number, I think.
I didn't put quite all of it in our notes. He said something like, "Do you think Russell was lying?" Or maybe his wife asked that. I don't recall now. But then the line is like, well, there's one way to find out. Like the implication is they're going to go outside. You know, it's like
Yeah.
we're all dead anyway. Um, but yeah, I mean, if Russell was the head of IT, I mean, you'd expect Russell would have been saying, "You can't go outside. You'll die if you go outside." Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it just feels a little wonky, a little bit of wonkiness here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, anyhow, I did think it was kind of cool how that that tied together. I went back and watched that opening scene from the
Yeah.
season premiere again, and it was more or less like what you don't see is
Mm-hmm.
what you see in this episode because they're
Is what you
storming
see in
it.
this episode.
The sheriff says, "Take Russell alive," and they successfully, get over there, and then it cuts to his conversation with his wife. So now we know, well, what happened right after that. He took Russell, put a gun to his head, went to the vault door, demanded that Solo let him in. Solo wouldn't. Um, he shot Russell in the head accidentally. He says, I don't care about this guy. I don't forgive him."
Yeah.
Um, his his wife's cleaning the blood off of him. Then they decide to go outside. Right. So we more or less got the whole story, other than whatever happened in there in terms of some people um, not leaving. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
all right. So, Silo 18, brewing rebellion, fears that it's going to go in the same way. Sheriff Billings has taken the side of mechanical, as in
Mm-hmm.
parallel, right? It was the sheriff leading the rebellion at the end in Silo 17. Um, Billings is reaching out to the Simses. He shows Sims, Robert Sims, the page from the tour book, but he really wants to get to Camille, and then you have the conversation between Camille and Sims. Um, all of that's interesting, and then also this question of whether Knox has figured out Walker is the traitor. All right, maybe I said too much. Where do you want to start with all that?
Yeah, I think maybe with sort of comparing Billings and Sims, it's pretty clear Billings is, and he's communicated. He's made his choice where he wants to stand, where he's putting his flag on the ground. His wife is on board with that. Clearly, Patrick Kennedy, who they've been treating, is on board with that. But they're trying to, I guess, recruit. They believe they understand where Camille Sims lies. She's helped some people from mechanical and from the down deep before, but it seems like they're trying to get Robert Sims on their side as well. And so I took the last conversation that they had where Robert Sims is telling his wife, listen, Bernardo's got this key to the server room. Anytime something goes wrong, it sort of lights up, demands him to go in there. Um, the person who would control that and have all the answers is the person who would have, it's either the head of IT or the person who's in possession of the key. And I took that to mean, all right, we're going to go get possession of this key. We're pushing Bernard aside. It's time for us to sort of take over in a manner of speaking.
Yeah, so that's kind of interesting because with all of this, it's not clear to what extent they want to go outside.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? And maybe that was the case in Silo 17 as well. They're really trying to get into the vault. They're trying to get into IT. So we're seeing a parallel there. From what we know about Sims, you know, could well see some potential for Sims now to align with the rebels in mechanical, and their goal is to take out Bernard. Basically, I'm worried about Bernard's future. I think that Bernard
Yeah,
might be in trouble.
he certainly is in trouble. He has very, very few allies left, if any. To the point that you were talking about earlier, there will be something that comes that surprises us, something that comes that is shocking, something that comes that is a big cliffhanger. But I mean, I don't know about you. It seems pretty clear to me that there's going to be some kind of big confrontation in the finale. There's going to be something between Bernard and Amundsen and the Raiders and the people trying to bust through this barricade and get the truth known for themselves. They're going to bust open the vault. They're going to learn some things. They're going to, but still try to get outside. And at that moment, that's when Juliet shows up and says, "No, wait, you can't go out." They were telling the truth all along. That seems pretty clear to me that that's the path that seems like will happen. Again, I think the more interesting thing might end up being not what's happening up top, but what's happening way down below, which is totally new territory for us. I do think that there's a big confrontation coming. I do think Bernard may not be long for this world. We'll see if he's around after the finale.
Yeah, I mean it's weird because like I don't know. Do you really have a lot of sympathy for Bernard?
Yeah,
But I like Tim Robbins.
yeah,
I
exactly.
don't want him to die. I want Tim Robbins. He beat on the show because I like Tim Robbins. Bernard spends most of the episode just sitting there watching the surveillance footage of Walker. I do think it's worth mentioning that Lucas tries to come and talk to him again,
Hmm.
right? Because the first time he says, "Oh, I cracked part of the code. It says there are 50 silos," and Bernard's like, "Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't told you yet, but all ITs and all shadows know that except for you because I haven't bothered to tell
Yeah.
you yet." But then when he tries to find, I mean, I thought it was worth noting that he does try to find Bernard again, and he doesn't, and that seems a little bit pivotal in my read in terms of what Lucas does, because he decides, okay, then I'm going to go figure this out on my own.
Yeah,
I'm going to
exactly.
stash the pack with my mom and go down there on my own. So I feel like in that moment, we also are somewhat seeing Lucas turn against Bernard. And it could have maybe gone another way if Bernard had just been available at the right
Yeah.
time.
If Bernard had been available, if Amundsen had said, "Okay, yeah, you got something important, I'll take you to him. Yes, we can interrupt him." If Bernard wasn't spending all of his time just watching Walker to see if any information comes out of that room, yeah, I think this could have gone a different direction. He was trying because of clearly the freedom he was given by Bernard to be somewhat loyal, but when it doesn't seem like Bernard is being loyal to him, and when he comes up with the information, he's like, "Well, I don't know, just keep going, keep finding, keep looking." I think Lucas is just like to what you said. All right, I'm just going to go do this on my own. I'm going to get the information. I'll be the one with the with what I need. Then we'll see, sort of who's not who's in charge here, but yeah, what are we going to do with what we're about to find out?
Yeah, and maybe at that point he's still thinking he'll report back to Bernard.
Yeah,
Um, let's tie one more thing in here before we return to Lucas, which is still on the Bernard's in trouble angle. I think from reading your recap article that we're agreed here that we both think that Knox has figured out that Walker is a traitor. Yes?
yeah. I was from 2 episodes ago where he's really trying to ponder who would have had the ability to communicate to people above the barricade what was going to happen in supply when they were going to go and raid that place and get some of the resources that they needed. He goes through some of the options and thinks about how none of them would have worked, and then it's almost like something clicks that, oh wait, I mean literally saw Walker go up there at the request of Bernard to fix something. We know that she has this incentive of what she wants with Carla, and he's just in my opinion, he's put two and two together and figured it out.
Yeah, I'm just doing. I think we're reading facial expressions and intonations and the like, right?
Yeah.
Because what happens here is he comes to Walker's workshop and tells Walker, excuse me, I figured out who the traitor is. And I mean, I don't know, it's possible that I'm reading into this too much because I half expect him to say, as JQ's. But it felt like that still to me in terms of his inflection and his facial expression, although what he goes on to say is it's Teddy's mother or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then we cut to Bernard watching, and Bernard smiles, right? So I think that Knox knows that Walker is the one who fed information to Bernard. I think he's put that together,
Yeah.
and that thus what we're seeing is him feed false information to Bernard. He's figured out that Walker isn't leaving her shop because like Bernard won't let her. Like he's figured out what's going on, I think, and then is feeding false information to Bernard. Is that how you
Yeah,
read this
this
also?
this is the old. This is exactly what I'm thinking too. This is the old Friends episode. They don't know. We know. That type of thing, right? So Walker can, or sorry, Knox can sort of play this role where it appears like he's giving information. He's keeping Walker looped in on what they're doing, and all of it seems legit. She hasn't no reason to suspect that he knows that it is her. And so they can sort of subvert what Bernard is trying to do by just feeding him false information.
Yeah, I think that it's,
Yeah,
just a note, it's possible that we're wrong here, but
that's
that's
right.
how it read to me. It's possible that Knox really does think it's Teddy's mom or something like that, and we're reading this wrong, but I'm pretty sure. And if that's right, then he's potentially set up Bernard for a situation where they're going to turn the tables on Bernard and Odmanson and so on. So you put all that
Yeah.
together, Mechanical has a plan to do that. They've got the sheriff on their side. They've gotten pretty close, at least, to having the Simses on their side.
Yeah,
And the deputies,
that's what I was going to say. Yep.
whom Bernard tries to task with further stuff, they're not into it, right? They're kind of like,
No,
you told us we wouldn't have to worry about this rebellion. What do you mean
exactly.
we've got to be cafeteria guards? So
Yeah.
they're at least, you know.
Yeah. This, like I said, this does not look good for Bernard. This is going to be some kind of bait and switch where Knox comes up with a plan of, oh, we're going to use the gunpowder to blow up this thing over here, divert Bernard and his resources that way. Then they bust through the silo, take over a bunch of levels and try to make their way to the top, and maybe they get close before, again, my theory, they run into Juliet. We'll see.
Yeah. One thing that is stuck in my mind a little bit as a question about Silo 17, and I'm not sure it matters, but why was the walkway destroyed? The walkway to get to IT was destroyed before the first time we saw it in Silo 17 in those
Yeah.
flashbacks. The rebels show up with the metal to put over it. You have to imagine, I guess, that it was the IT folks themselves who blew that up so that the rebels couldn't get there.
Or, or is that a part of whatever this safeguard is that's meant to protect people or protect certain parts of the silo? Who knows?
Yeah, that's a question we have to work in the direction of. This episode is called The Safeguard. What is the safeguard? Doesn't tell us. But what we do get with Lucas, we've hit on some of this, right? He goes down to the bottom of the silo with Shirley's
Hmm.
help, which is what George did, right? There's a callback here to I think it's the season 1 finale when Juliet watches the video of George. But Juliet couldn't make it down there, right? It's a weird. Sorry, that's almost too much of a tangent. Did you remember how Juliet was afraid of water?
Yeah.
Like, think about this whole season, and she overcame that fear of water pretty well, I guess.
Yes.
But so Lucas goes down there. The water's not very deep.
Hmm.
Just already knew that. Um, he goes and finds the tunnel. The subtitles call the voice the algorithm.
Yes, I noticed this. Yeah, which is what Bernard refers to, that the voice is inside the vault as the
Yeah.
algorithm.
So is it the same thing? Is it all one system? Why is it called the algorithm? that's bothering me a little bit, just in terms of what algorithm means. But I don't have anywhere to go with it at the moment. Maybe I'll try to think about that more by next week.
Yeah. And when he
Like,
gets down there, it recognizes him. It says, Lucas Kyle, why are you here? And so it's not just a automated, there's a person here, I must greet them. No, it recognizes who that is and asks them if he has certain pieces of information. And then, the warnings come before he agrees to enter. So it's some sort of smart system and not just a, automatic door of some kind.
right, it knows who he is. It tells him that only 3 people have made it there before. Salvador Quinn,
Mhm.
140 years ago, we think.
Yeah.
Um, Meadows and George.
Yeah.
But the algorithm did not talk to George, which, that also makes sense. He didn't have the credentials,
That's right. That's
right?
right.
Whereas Meadows, the IT shadow, Lucas, the IT shadow, Quinn was the head of IT. So it's going to tell him secrets, or I mean, this is just a question that I have. I don't know. It's like, is he going to go through there? Maybe is that part of it, or just be told things? The
Yeah.
algorithm asks if he knows what the safeguard is, and he says yes, but we don't because the show withheld that part of Quinn's letter.
Yeah.
But
I think I think that we're given the impression that yeah, there are some secrets that lie behind this door, or through this tunnel. Why that exists is this sort of like a quest that was set up for heads of IT to locate it so they can find more information out about why this was all done and what the meaning of it is. And if he says anything to anyone, the safeguard is going to be initiated. Yeah, but what is it that he finds, and what is it that reveals that information to him? And certainly what the information is, yeah, very, very ambiguous at this point.
well, I can say this at least. I'm confident we're going to find that out next week.
Hmm.
Are we going to find out what the safeguard is? I'm actually less confident in
Yeah,
that. So we can
yeah,
speculate about that in a moment. But look, one thing that I think we need to tie in here is okay, well, now we know why Meadows, even when she was dying, would not tell Bernard the terrible truth, because the algorithm at the bottom of the silo told her that if she ever told anyone, it would initiate the safeguard.
yeah,
So clearly it's bad. Is the
yeah.
safeguard a matter of like killing everyone in the silo? Maybe.
Could be.
Um, Regardless, we can talk about that more in a minute if you want. But when I put a little bit of weight on the idea that Lucas tried to go talk to Bernard and couldn't get him, well, now we have a situation where Lucas is going to be the new Meadows who cannot and will not tell Bernard what he wants to know,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Um, is there any possibility that if Bernard had been available, they would have gone to the bottom of the silo together? I don't know. I am presuming that if Bernard went to that door, the algorithm would also talk to him.
Absolutely. Yeah, I certainly think that that's the case. I mean, it doesn't seem to play any sort of judgment or morality police of, are you a good head of IT? Are you a bad head of IT? Are you doing what you're supposed to do? It just recognizes whether that person has the proper identification or their proper authority and is revealing or willing to reveal its knowledge and its secrets to the person who's there. Yeah, I do think it would have told Bernard the same thing.
Yeah, so I think there is another possibility that Bernard ends up down there somehow. Maybe.
Mhm.
Um, is the tunnel a tunnel between silos? That's what I had previously speculated. Um,
Yeah, that just
I
appears that it would be based on the fact that Lucas knows that Bernard is not surprised by it. We know it and have seen some of the schematics that show a potential connection. That would seem to be a real letdown if that's all that it is. Is here you have passage to another silo by going through here. I hope that that's not all that it is.
well, I don't think that's all we're going to find out. I just don't know. It'll be interesting to see whether the terrible truth is a matter of going through the tunnel, or if we're on the cusp of an exposition dump from the algorithm. This is like the one time you'll hear me say this. I'm on board for the exposition dump.
Yeah. So because we've had none of it this season
Yeah.
and we just need something.
Yeah, you've set it up, you've set it up to the plot to where now you've got this, AI
Yeah.
that knows things that it can tell Lucas. It flows well enough. Give as much exposition, as much explanation as you want to in the season 2 finale through the algorithm, right? But we'll see. I hope we find out what the safeguard is. Do you have any further thoughts on that, or speculations about what the safeguard might be?
The only thing I can think is something that would keep the silos and founders secrets secret. So something where if people are able to or on the brink of being able to escape or going to or have the opportunity to break through or communicate somehow that it can, or in the sense of a rebellion where whatever's being done there is at risk of being eliminated, it could just wipe everyone out and they can, whoever's in charge of this whole thing can repopulate the silo with new people or, it's something that does that. I mean, what is a safeguard other than something that's put in place to make sure something doesn't fail?
Exactly.
And so
Yeah.
that's just all I can think that it could be is just a complete elimination of the people there that are putting their system at risk.
Yeah, that's all I can think of too, which puts me much on the path again of thinking about whether this is all some kind of social experiment or something like that. Maybe it's not. Well, it is
Yeah.
toxic outside, but maybe it's not toxic outside everywhere.
Yeah.
Maybe it's only toxic outside because of this dust that the true powers that be in the world keep pumping into this area. Um, Again, maybe they're keeping tabs on what's going on in all the silos to like just kind of see how things go because they're,
Yeah.
dystopian sociologists. I
Th-
don't
This
know.
this is a theory I've been working on in my brain, which is yeah, there is the majority of the world understands that some kind of crisis or dystopia is coming, and so they are watching people to see what happens when you put them in this situation and how they respond to these types of things. And they're creating this laboratory of this thing to see what will happen when our dystopia actually arrives. That wouldn't that that wouldn't surprise me if we get to that point. I'm not saying that it's close to what's right, but could be.
We don't know. But yeah, that's interesting. And then it also sticks in my mind that the order mentioned OSHA for some reason.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I mean, the best I've got is it's a safeguard, particularly when you tie in the fact that it's whatever it is, it's bad enough that Meadows is going to keep this secret. She's
Yeah,
going to just withdraw into herself and drink in a room for 25 years. And then,
yeah,
but when Juliet got out, right, that spurs something in her to quit drinking, to get back with it. Recall further that Meadows
mhm,
wanted to go outside,
yeah,
right? Why? Well, I guess we now know that Meadows knew that there were other silos, as
yes,
did Bernard, you know. So, but maybe she knows a bit more than that
yeah,
and is thinking, well, the fact that Juliet managed to get outside of the area of this silo means that if I have an effective enough suit, I can get further. Maybe she knows that there's safety somewhere. Like maybe she's
yeah.
trying to get. I keep mentioning it, but I think it's worth mentioning continually. There was a city on the horizon.
There was,
Are there
yeah,
people there? Is it an active city? Are there people living there, or is it ruins? We don't know. All we saw was the skyline, but that was there in the season 1 finale. So
yeah, yeah. That's one thing I'd say we won't get more of is much of the outside world beyond just this little section of silos that we're in right now.
I don't know, man. My hope is going back to what I was saying earlier that it's season finale time,
Yeah, that's right.
and that once again it's going to end with big mind blowing expansion of the Silo universe.
Yeah, yeah,
um it could be what we've sketched already, but I'll be a little bit disappointed if it is just that. In other words, the rebellion comes to a head in Silo 18. Juliet puts her suit on. She walks back. She gets there just in time to keep them from going outside of the silo and warn
Yeah.
them. And I mean, like, that could be a relatively exciting hour of television all on its own. I want more.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree. If the finale is it will it's not even worth saying. The finale will not just be only rebellion leading to a reunion with Juliet. There will be more than that.
Yeah, we'll at least get, some follow up with Lucas and the
Yeah.
algorithm, at very least. But hopefully that is as impactful as they have set it up to be. I guess I trust that it will be.
Yeah.
But what could be still remains. Although, I mean, the safeguard business does throw something in there, right? If the safeguard is
Yeah.
everyone's going to die, well, okay,
Yeah.
then of course Meadow's not going to reveal the secret because she'd be worried about that. So
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, there's gonna need to be something. If I go back and look at a comment that Rebecca Ferguson made over the summer, they plan to film seasons 3 and 4 together.
really,
Sort of one long thing. She had this quote sometime in the summer before there was official renewal of the season 3 and 4. Now we know that there have been. So we're looking at a long wait. There was a long wait between seasons 1 and 2. So yeah, there's gonna need to be the good taste left in the mouth of people saying, yeah, I really want more of this and I'm willing to wait until season 3 is ready.
we'll see how long of a wait there is. I mean, part of the reason the wait was as long as it was between seasons 1 and 2 was because of the strikes.
Yeah.
They were in production when the
Yeah.
strikes happened. So they were getting right on top of making season 2 in
Yeah.
short order. It doesn't feel that long to me. It's going to be weird.
Compared to Severance.
If we finally get back to where TV shows come out like once a year, it's going to be very
Yeah.
bewildering having gone through the past, 5 years, because
Yeah,
first it was
exactly.
COVID production delays and all of that, and then started getting kind of back to normal, and then the strikes that delayed things, and
Yeah.
well, I guess now we've got wildfires, and how much are they delaying things?
Oh boy.
At least a little bit. At least a little bit. I did read that a couple of
Yeah.
those shows are
Few things have shut down. Yeah.
being delayed in their production from the fires, and of course that's all awful. And I don't know what else to say about that, but
Yeah.
I don't know, thoughts, prayers, well wishes, all of that to anyone out there in LA and California with those fires. That wasn't a planned mention, but
No, it needs to be said. We've ugh,
probably should have put it at the top in the news part.
yeah.
Actually.
No, I was thinking of making a very ill-timed and bad segue into the name of the finale.
Yeah, the title of the finale. Yeah.
But yeah, very much looking forward to that and to Severance, which we'll be doing both next week.
Right. So we'll be back next Friday on the 17th, wrapping up Silo. We're also going to find time here to record something on the season premiere of Severance. So we'll have that for you. Keep an eye out for that. I think probably the Severance pod will be kind of just focused on Severance, and the Silo one will be our normal deal with the news and notes and everything up front. And then from there, we'll continue week to week through season 2 of Severance. Looking forward to it immensely. If you haven't watched Severance, go watch Severance. You can apparently get it for free on the Roku channel right now, or sign up for Apple TV Plus, whatever. Regardless, we'll be back with you next week. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the podcast. Please do leave a good rating, review, all that good stuff. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel, give a thumbs up. Check out our website, TVObscast.com. You can find written articles on each episode of Silo there. Ryan's been writing on season 2 week to week. I wrote in season 1. You can also find stuff on Severance there. I wrote on each episode of season 1, plus a kind of more, I don't know, theory type article, and we're back on that for season 2 also. Articles on any number of things there as well. Poke around TVObsessive.com. Follow us on social media, search for TV Obsessive, and we'll be back next week.
All right, see you then.